this venerable who is with us today is a well-known, first-class Dhamma preacher in Sri Lanka. Always in televisions and radios and all over the country, he is delivering sermons and doing a very good service. But the trouble is, when they come here, they don't speak English. They can understand, they can read. When we ask them to speak, very reluctant, they think that they make mistakes. But their Dhamma knowledge is excellent. So, what do you want me to do tonight? Do you need further explanation to this samsara and nirvana, what Mr. Bunkokchen tried to explain, or do you want me to continue? What is your idea? If you need further explanation, because these two words are very subtle and actually very speculative, and very difficult to gain some sort of ideas or realizations or understanding. But we have to keep them as theories, belief, concept, because our minds are very raw, not matured enough to grasp. So what do you want me to do?
ගරුතර නායක ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේගෙන් අවසරයි. පින්වත්නි පින්වතියනි, අද මේ ස්ථානයට පැමිණිලා විහාරයට පැමිණිලා මේ පින්වතුන් දැකලා වචනයක් දෙකක් කතා කරන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබීම ගැන මම පළමුවෙන් බොහොම සන්තෝෂ වෙනවා. ඒකට අවස්ථාව ලබා දීම ගැන නායක හාමුදුරුවන්ටත් මේ තරුණ මහත්මයාටත් මම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. ලංකාවේ ඉඳලා ටික දවසක් ගත කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනුයි මා මේ රටට ආවේ. මැලේසියාවට පැමිණි දෙවෙනි අවස්ථාවයි මේ. 1982 අවුරුද්දේදී මම මේ විහාරස්ථානයට ඇවිදින් මේ රටට බලලා ගියා. මේ වරත් ඉන්ට අවස්ථාවක් ලැබීම ගැන බොහොම සන්තෝෂ වෙනවා. ඊළඟට අපිට පේනවා අපේ ලංකාව ගැන, ශ්‍රී ලංකාව ගැන කතා කරනකොට චීන දේශයත් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවත් කියන රටවල් දෙක මේට අවුරුදු 1800 ගණනකටත් එහා පැත්තේ ඉඳලා ලොකු සම්බන්ධයක් තිබිලා තියෙනවා. ඒ බෞද්ධ ආගමේ සම්බන්ධය නිසායි. ඊටත් එහා පැත්තේ කතා කරනකොට අවුරුදු 2500කටත් එහා පැත්තේ චීන දේශයේ වෙළඳ අය ලංකාවට පැමිණිච්ච ඓතිහාසික ප්‍රවෘත්ති මුඛ පරම්පරාගතව ඒ වගේම තව නොයෙක් ඉතිහාස ප්‍රවෘත්ති අනුව සටහන් වෙලා තියෙනවා. චීන දේශයේ අපේ රටේ ඉතිහාසය සකස් කරනකොට චීන දේශයෙන් 5 වෙනි සතවර්ෂයේ ලංකාවට වැඩම කළ හියුන්සියාන් කියන ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ චීන ජාතික අපේ රට ගැන දීපු බොහොම වැදගත් විස්තරයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ විස්තරය ගැන කියනකොට මට එක ප්‍රවෘත්තියක් මතක් වෙනවා. මේ කාරණේ නායක හාමුදුරුවෝ හොඳට පහදලා දෙයි. ඒ හියුන්සියාන් චීන හාමුදුරුවෝ කියනවා ලංකාවට ආපු වෙලාවේ ලංකාවේ අනුරාධපුරේ ඊට අගදගත් උස 18 රියන් බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ නමක් තිබුණා. ඒ අඹු බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ ඔළුව පාත් කරගෙන බිම් බලාගෙන හිටියේ වැටෙන්නේ නැතුව. ඒ කියන්නේ හිස කඩා වැටෙන්නේ නැතුව ඔළුව පාත් කරගෙන මේ බුදු පිළිම වහන්සේ ඉන්නේ. මේ චීන හියුන්සියාන් ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ මේ ගැන අහලා තියෙන ලංකාවේ අවුරුදු 2ක් ඉඳලා තියෙනවා. මේකට හේතුව ඒ අහපු වෙලාවේදී කියලා තියෙන්නේ එක්තරා හොරෙක් ඇවිදින් මේ වටිනා බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ හිස ඔසවාගෙන හොතට අඹපු බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ නමක් 18 රියනක මේ ඇස් දෙකේ තියෙන වටිනා ඉන්ද්‍ර නීල මාණික්ක දෙක ගලව ගන්නයි හොරා ඇවිදින් තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් එතෙන්දී මේ බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ කලින් තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ පස්රියනකට. බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේට නැගලා ගොඩ වෙලා මේ ඇස් දෙකේ මැලික ගලවන්න හදනකොටම ඒක නමරියනක් උස්සලා තියෙනවා ඉබේම බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමාව. පස්සේ හොරා ඊළඟට ගිහින් ඊට පස්සේ ආයෙ දවසක් මේ විහාරයට ඇවිදින් රහසිගතව ඉනිමගක් තියෙන අර නමරියන් බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේගේ ඉන්ද්‍රනීල මාණික්ක දෙක ඇස් දෙකේ ගලව ගන්න හදනකොට ඒක දොළොස්රියනක් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඉන් අනතුරුව මොකද කරන්නේ ආයෙත් මේ මිනිස්සයා ගිහින් රහසිගතව තවත් එක්කෙනෙක් දෙන්නෙක් සහාය කරගෙන ඇවිදින් ඉනිමග තියලා බලනකොට එදා ගොඩ වෙලා බලනකොට අර දොළොස්රියනක් උසට ඉනිමග හදාගෙන ආවේ දැන් ඒක 15 ශ්‍රියනක් උස්සලා තියෙනවා. පස්සේ විමතියට පස්සෙලා අනිත් දවසේ කලේ මොකද 15 ශ්‍රියනකට ඉනිමග බැඳගෙන ආවා. ඒ දාරය. ඒ ඇවිදින් බලනකොට 18 ශ්‍රියනක් බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ ඉස්සුණා. පස්සේ මේ හොරා කළා තියෙන්නේ මොකද්ද? ඉනිමග අරගෙන පැත්තකින් තියලා බුදුහාමුදුරුවන්ට වැඳලා ස්වාමීනි ඔබ වහන්සේ මේ දාන පාරමිතාව පුරුදු කළේ බුදු වෙනකන් විතරක්ද? බෝධිසත්ව කාලේ විතරක්ද දාන පාරමිතාව සම්පූර්ණ කළේ? බුදු වුණායින් පස්සේ දන් දීම නැවැත්තුවද? මම දුප්පත් කෙනෙක්. ඊටාමත් වටින හිතු පෙතු සම්පත් දෙන මණික් දෙකක් ඔබ වහන්සේගෙන් නේත්‍ර දෙකට මේ අල්ලලා තියෙනවා. මේ ඉන්ද්‍රනීල මාණික්‍ය දෙක මට ලැබුණොත් ඒකෙන් මට බොහොම ධනවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, පෝසත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, මගේ පරම්පරාවම දිනු කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසායි මම මේ ආර්ය නැති බැරි කමටේ කියලා වැඳහම අර 18 රියනක් ඉස්සිච්ච බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ අර අඹපු බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ හිස පාත් කරලා තියෙනවා. අර 15 ශ්‍රියනක් උස ඉනිමගේ ඉඳගෙන ඇස් දෙක ගලව ගන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබෙනවා. මේ හිංසියන් චීන හාමුදුරුවෝ මේ කතාව ලියලා තියෙනවා. මම පුදුමුණායි මම දැක්කය මේ බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ මේ විදිහට හිස පාත් කරගෙන තියෙනවා. හේතු අහනකොට ওই කතාව කිව්වයි. මණික් ගල් දෙක ඇස් දෙකේ නෑ. පස්සේ මේකට මේ හොරා බය වෙලා තියෙනවා. බය වෙලා ගිහින් කාටත් මතක් කළා රහසිගතව. ඒ පාර රජතුමාට දැනගන්න ලැබ රජතුමා කැඳවල අවවාද කළා ඔහුට දෙන ධනෙ දීලා අර මණික් ගල් දෙක නැවත සවි කරවලා තියෙනවා. ඒ උනත් අර හිස පාත් කරගත්ත බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමා වහන්සේ ඔළුව පාත් කරගෙනම ඒ පාර දිගටම තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ එහෙමයි. චීන හාමුදුරුවෝ යනකොටත් එහෙමමයි. උන්වහන්සේ විමතියක් පළ කළා තියෙනවා මේ බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමාවේ හිස කඩාන වැටි තියෙන එකයි පුදුම කියලා. මේක ලෝහ ප්‍රතිමාවක් නෙමෙයි අඹපු ගල් වලින් අඹපු සිමෙන්ති වලින් ඒ කාලේ තිබිච්ච බදාම වලින් අපපු බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමාවක්. ඔන්න ඔය වගේ වටින ප්‍රවෘත්ති අපේ වංශ කතාවල ඇතුළත් නොවෙච්ච සිංහල වංශ කතාවල ඇතුළත් නොවුණු වැදගත් කතා ප්‍රවෘත්ති මේ චීන හාමුදුරුවන්ගේ පොතේ තියෙනවා. තව පාහියන් කියලා ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ නමක් ගැන. ඒ නිසා මම ඊට වඩා දිගට කතා කරන්නේ මේ දේශනාවට බාධාවක්. මම බොහොම කනගාටු වෙනවා මේ දේශනාව මේ පින්වතුන්ට ඉංග්‍රීසි භාෂාවෙන් කරන්නට අවස්ථාවක් නොලැබීම ගැන. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ චීන දේශයේ අපේ රටේ ලොකු සම්බන්ධයක් තිබලා තියෙනවා. අපේ නායක හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේ ලංකාවේ බොහොම වැදගත් සම්භාවනීය බොහොම ගෞරව කරනු ලබන ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ නමක්. උන්වහන්සේගේ ප්‍රයෝජනය ලැබෙන දැන් මේ පින්වතුන්ටයි මේ පින්වතුන් අතර වැඩ ඉඳගෙන මේ කාගේ සැලකිලි ලබාගෙන උන්වහන්සේ පොත්පත් ධර්මයේ ලියාගෙන දේශනා කරගෙන මැලේසියාවට කරන සේවය ගැන අපි බොහොම සන්තෝෂ වෙන බව පළ කරමින් අපේ නායක හාමුදුරන්ට දීර්ඝායු සම්පත් ලැබේවා කියලා පතන අතරතම මේ පින්වතුන්ටත් යහපත් අනාගතයක් ඇති වේවා සසර දුකින් එතර වීමෙන් ලබන උතුම් වූ නිවන් සම්පත් පිණිසම මේ පින හේතු වේවා කියලා මම ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා.
Yes, it's a very interesting story. Did you understand? You can, huh? They can understand. They speak English. Very few. What about you? Cannot. It's a very interesting story. So what he said, actually he said this is his second visit to this country, and he is very happy and grateful to all of us for giving this opportunity to come and see you and talk to you. And having seen that there are many Chinese devotees here, he wanted to relay historical incident which has taken place long ago in Sri Lanka. I think you have heard that there were 3 Chinese travelers and pilgrims who visited India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and stayed there for many years, studied languages, religions, and collected enough relics and scripts and various religious objects and taken to China. And the first pilgrim was Faxian, nearly 4th century. He studied in Nalanda University in India, spent nearly 7 years. Then in Sri Lanka was 3 years. Then another name just now our Reverend mentioned is Yuan Shen. Many Chinese cannot understand this name because today they don't use this name. So in Romanized character or Sinhalese character, they use to pronounce as Yuan Shen. I don't know whether you can remember. I think in Chinese there will be another name. So when he visited Sri Lanka, what he has seen or what he has heard about a miracle. And before that, he said, relationship between Chinese and Sri Lanka started more than 2,500 years ago. Trade and certain other business and visiting China and visiting Sri Lanka, they have exchanged their gift and trades. Then directly they developed their relationship nearly 1,800 years ago. Historical evidence to prove. Then he said, this venerable Yuan Shen, when he visited Anuradhapura, ancient kingdom, Buddhist kingdom, today we can see only ruins, bricks and broken Buddha villages, the whole area destroyed by the invaders, enemies. But the ruins still remain there. So when he visited one well-known shrine room in Anuradhapura, he has seen a huge stone Buddha image, and the head of this image was bending like this. When Yuan Shen asked why this Buddha image is with his head in this way, and they have revealed the secret. Some times ago, a thief entered into this shrine room because this image had very valuable gems here in the eyes, stones. He wanted to take out these 2 valuable stones. At that time, this image, say about 9 feet. So when he tried to take out the stone from the eyes, the image started to go higher and higher and higher up to, how many feet? 15. No, later. First he says about 5 feet. Let us take 5 feet. When this man tried to take out the stone, the image started to increase and develop up to 9 or 18. So he could not reach. Every time when he reached to take away the stone, the image also started going higher and higher and higher so that he could not reach. Later, he brought a ladder according to the height of the image. So when he brought the ladder according to the height of the image, again the image gone higher and higher. The more he developed his ladder, the more the image also go higher and higher. Now he knew that he cannot take this. So what he did, having seen this miracle, although he is a thief, he paid respect and bowed down and said, I heard that you have practiced Dana Paramita during your previous birth. Did you practice this Dana Paramita until you attained Buddhahood? Or did you stop that Dana Paramita after becoming a Buddha? I see the question now. But why you did not allow me to take out this valuable stone so that I can live peacefully without begging or without robbing and disturbing others? Now then, the Buddha image bent his head and allowed him to take out these valuable stones. Then he said, when the kings came to know that the man has taken away these two valuable stones, he could manage to find out this man and again ask him to return and fix these two stones, and he was looked after by the king without allowing him to rob and without allowing him to suffer. This record is there in Hien Shen's Traveller's Record. I have read this book long ago, I think more than 40 years ago. I have forgotten the story. More than 40 years ago I have read this story, his record. He has written so many miracles, what he has seen in India, in Sri Lanka and many other places. So he wanted to relay this story to show the relationship between Sinhalese and Chinese. Lucky that man who came to steal the stones are not a Chinese. This is the story. So in the end, he wish you good health and long life, and he blessed all of you. So what do you want to know? His talk? His talk. Okay. He tried to explain the nature of samsara and nirvana, because Mahayana scholar Nagarjuna tried to merge nirvana and samsara. He says there is no difference between nirvana and samsara. Many people cannot understand. When we analyze the nature of samsara and the nature of nirvana, actually what he tried to point out, when we analyze the nature of samsara, nature of existence, in the end there is nothing to remain as permanent entity, substance. So when we analyze nirvana, also we cannot find any existing permanent entity. In that sense, there is no difference between samsara and nirvana. But many people cannot understand. Why cannot understand? Now let us define the word samsara. What is written in our Buddhist book? Khandanam patipati dhatu ayatananicha abbocchinnam vattamanam samsaroti pauchyati. This is the definition. There are three groups of ingredients in samsara, three categories: skandha, dhatu, ayatana. Now we have to analyze. What is a skandha? what is dhatu, what is ayatana. Skandha, 5 aggregates. Pancha khanda. Pancha means 5, khanda means heap. So 5 groups exist as a bundle. So this is Pancha Khanda, 5 heaps joined together, because inside there are binding factors and energies and gravity and so many forces. Because of these energies, these ingredients remain as a bundle. Then this bundle take a shape, like humans, animals, or any other forms of existence. But when you analyze, you can see only these 5 things, 5 aggregates. Now this is one group, a skandha. Then dhatu, element. Dhatu means element. 4 elements. These 4 elements are very common: Pathavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo. Solidity, fluidity, heat, motions or wind. Not in the gross forms, but in their original forms as energies. They are also energies. So these 4 elements, energies of these 4 elements supported these 5 aggregates to combine together, exist together, and could create the formation as a visual object. Now when we take the life of a deva or Brahma or spirit or ghost, the formations of these elements is different, not like ours. And that is why they are invisible to our naked eyes. We cannot see them. So we should not say that they do not exist. They do exist, although we cannot see them. The 4 elements. Then ayatana, senses. There are 6 senses: Chakku, Sota, Ghana, Jiva, Kaya, Mana. Very simple. There is no difficulty to understand this. These 6 senses also contribute many things to maintain, to exist, to sustain this bundle. Our eyes, ears, nose and mouth and the body, 5, isn't it? 5 senses. Then the mind. Mind itself grasps objects, create mental image, create imaginations without depending on senses, 5 senses, 6 senses. So now you can understand 5 aggregates, 4 elements, 6 senses, 3 groups. So when we analyze the first group, Pancha Khanda, 5 aggregate, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, that is the most important aspect. Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, our mental faculties, how our mental energies develop and functions or the duties or the activities of our mind. Analyze. The only religion which gives clear explanation of the mental activities you can find only in Abhidhamma. So Abhidhamma means analytical interpretation of mental energies and elements. Go on analyzing and explain why these evil thoughts, bad and wicked and harmful thoughts, ideas appear in our mind. What are the causes? Here the Buddhism never says evil thoughts appear in our mind through the influence of devils or ghosts or anybody else. Directly point out our mind, our mental faculties are responsible for this. Again, why good thoughts appear in our mind, such as our compassion, our sympathy and generosity, patience. Who created these ideas in our mind? By the same mind. Original energy, mental energy is the same. But external manifestation, gadgets, gives or create different effects. Example, for the electricity, when you fix this electricity to air condition, you get cold waves, very cold. The same electricity you connect into a heater from the other end, or from the same plug, from there you get heat waves. So electricity produces both heat and cold, exactly in the same manner. The same mental energy we divert either in this way or that way to create the bad effect as well as the good effect, to do some service to others or to disturb others. And this is the nature of mental energy. So the duty of this religion is to analyze, to explain what this mind is. So when we realize the real nature of this mind, we can understand our good friends is also nothing but this mind. Our worst enemy in this world, also our own mind, not outsiders. In fact, devil and God both are living in our mind. Animals, devils, humans, devas, Brahmas also living in our mind. It depends how we use this mental energy. If we cultivate, train, develop, purify, then we can behave as devas, Brahmas. Let us take 4 Brahma Vihara, sublime states: Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekka. Development in the same mind. Brahma, highest, noble, sublime. Who created, who produced this mind? Sublime. Who created, who produced this mind? We develop metta, our goodwill, our loving kindness, universal love. Universal love means without boundary, without any limit. When we develop our love, selfless love, that is called metta. Same mind. Again we develop kindness or compassion. Now what is the difference between metta and kindness? Can you tell me? You might have heard hundreds and thousands of talk about metta and kindness. Do you know whether there is any difference between metta and kindness? Can you please tell me? Is there any difference? Yes or no? What is this difference? What is metta and what is kindness?
Metta is more less attachment.
Your explanation is correct. I remember I had explained in the same way the difference between metta and kindness. You have to go further. There's one step further to see the difference. Kindness we extend towards those who are in trouble, those who are in difficulties, those who really need our service. That is kindness. You understand this? Those who are suffering from hunger, those who are sick, those who need our assistance, then we extend our kindness. Whether we expect anything in return or not, our emotion, human emotion, persuade or encourage us to do some service, melt our heart, having seen certain problems and difficulties. This is kindness. But metta, we extend further. We extend our goodwill to each and every person whether they need our support or not. You understand the difference now? I wish you good health and long life. I extend. Without, whether you need it or not, it is my duty to radiate my loving kindness towards you. By doing that, I purify my own mind without any discrimination. On the other hand, whether you need or not, you feel very happy. When I say good health, long life, prosperity, happiness, be with you. You are not expecting or you are not waiting to receive any of them. Even then, when you hear these words, you feel very happy. So I can create cheerfulness, happiness, and confidence in your mind. See the difference now. Kindness and metta. Without any discrimination, without any boundary, we extend this goodwill. Then, mudita and upekha. It is a very difficult thing for us to cultivate. We cannot share the happiness of others, or the prosperity, or the development without passing remarks. Naturally, some sort of jealousy appear in our mind. We cannot tolerate when others prosper, when others enjoy their life, even harmless way, respectable way, we pass remarks. So, we have to train our mind to tolerate and to appreciate, to share the happiness of others without passing remarks or disturbing. It's a very difficult thing. All these things must come out from our own mind. Again, upekha is the most difficult thing. Why? By nature, we have our own intrinsic feeling. This is natural. To make this natural feeling, we have to train our mind through our knowledge and understanding. Otherwise, very, very difficult. What is this? We divide into various groups, racial groups, Chinese, Indians, Europeans, Americans, Japanese, Koreans, racial discrimination. Natural. Again we divide according to our respective religions, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism and any kind of religion. Again we differ or discriminate according to our color band. So whatever we preach, whatever we learn, it is very difficult for us to get rid of discrimination because of our color. It is natural. See, to overcome this weakness, we have to train and train and train our mind to be unbiased, to maintain equanimity, not to show any discrimination. Then, again, we differ when we come to perform certain traditional, cultural practices, our own tradition, our own culture. I can justify that my culture, my tradition is superior to your tradition and your culture, your way of life. I can cherish rubbish ideas, ridiculous things, because it is my culture and my tradition. I can ridicule your culture and your tradition. See the danger of this discrimination. To get rid of all these things, we have to train and train and train our mind. Remember what Dalai Lama has said? He's a religious head. When I meet another human being, I never consider or never think about his race, his religion, whether he is dark or black or white or yellow, whether he is a Buddhist or Hindu or Christian. I feel I met another member of my human family. There is discrimination. You understand? Human, whatever others. He may think this is another living being just like me, then there is no discrimination. He extended up to that. His sympathy, kindness, cooperation, understanding and everything is stopped that. He is also another human being who belongs to my human family. At least something. But when you come to this metta introduced by the Buddha, to him There is no difference whatsoever. Life is life. Ratana Mitta Sutta. There you can see the Buddha's attitude. Bhutava sambhavetiva sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta. Whether those who are born or unborn, though visible or invisible, far or near, big or small, makes no difference. Life is life. So if we can develop this goodwill towards all these living beings without any discrimination, see how many qualities, qualifications, virtues, knowledge, wisdom, understanding that we need. So, now I cannot understand what I am talking. I wanted to explain samsara, don't know where I am now. Samsara is like this, So, yes, the mind. I started from there. How we can divert our mind to be good or to be bad, to be wicked, to be kind. It depends on our training and understanding. You never gain this training and understanding and purity simply by worshipping to any God, any Buddha, any Bodhisattva, any supernatural living beings in this world, until you make up your own mind. You can pray, no harm at all. You can pray to anybody, very good. But you must make up your own mind to be good, to reduce your anger, reduce your cruelty, reduce your jealousy. Then you train your own mind. That is what the Buddha says. Sachitta pariyodapanam etang buddhana sasana. The message of all those Buddhas who appear, or who appear in time to come, give the same message. They have no different messages. Last one is Sachitta pariyodapanam. Teach you how to train or purify your own mind. Remember this word. The Buddhas teach you how to purify your own mind, because another person cannot purify your mind. The Buddha cannot purify your mind. God cannot purify your mind. You have to struggle, you have to work by knowing your weaknesses. So, these are the mental qualities and the functions and activities, good and bad. So when we analyze our feeling or sensations or our realization, recognitions, identifications and our habits, this is called samsara. Now we are trying to merge samsara and nirvana. Then what is nibbana? Analyze. Ragakhayo, dosakhayo, mohakhayo. Nibbana. Nibbana is there, where there is no craving, attachment, desire, selfishness. Nibbana is there, where there is no hatred, anger, jealousy, grudge and ill will. Nibbana is there, where there is no ignorance, illusions, imagination, hallucination. Now join together. This is the nature of nirvana. That means free from all the fetters and bondages and problems and difficulties and lamentations and worries and anxieties. Completely free. That is nirvana. That is what many people cannot understand. How can we join these two groups together to say there is no difference between nirvana and samsara? So what do you think now? Where you are, in samsara or nirvana? Just for the name's sake, just to show that they know better than you. Many learned people tend to glorify. They say, do you know there is no difference between nirvana and samsara? Do you know that fellow doesn't know anything about nirvana or samsara? That is what they talk like this. I think enough for this subject. A few minutes more. I think better to have some sort of discussion, and this reverends also can help us. You can ask any questions. Very seldom you get the chance to discuss something. Every Friday I come here and talk and talk and talk. You also listen and go back. You never open your mouth. Right. Start today. Very challenging one. Don't worry, this Reverend can answer. Wanted to talk. First, he survey his psychic power to understand the background, your mental background. Whether you have developed your mind during your previous birth also to get into this line. If not, it's very difficult. By knowing that, he preached. Again, he analyzed your existing mind. Then find out the confusion, misconceptions, and the weakness and the nature of understanding capacity. By considering all these things, he taught. Certain occasion he never uttered even one word, because he knew these people cannot understand. They create more misunderstanding or more confusion because they have no grasping power, no analytical knowledge, very poor understanding capacity. Again, your habit, your samsaric habit. Samsaric habit means the way how you used your mind and body during your previous birth, not only one, life after life. Do you know a well-known story in Dhammapada? Did you read that book? The story is there. So one day, when the Buddha was giving a sermon, how many people behaved there within the temple premises? How did they behave? Some people counting the stars. Instead of listening to the Buddha, they were counting stars and astronomy. They were talking about stars and planets. And some others drawing lines on the land, ground, here and here and there, drawing pictures and lines like small children, instead of listening to the Buddha. And some others shaking the branch of a tree and talking to each other. And here also, when some people come here on Friday, they don't know to come and listen. They go and sit down somewhere and get together, they hold meetings there. They come here to hold meeting, not to listen to why they talk. They have their private business and meeting. That is what this story says. This their habit, their way of life. So very difficult to train such people unless that understanding appear in their mind. So the Buddha is needed to understand our weaknesses, our background, and tell us what we can understand. I think you have heard that story on many, many occasions. The disciple, one of the disciples, was given a wrong object for his meditation. What is that story? Yes. Oh, goldsmith. So what happened? No, he was given a wrong object by another disciple of the Buddha for him to meditate. He used his full effort, could not gain anything. Then he got fed up with this meditation, because he has seen many others within a short period. They have attained even Arahanta, sainthood. Why he could not gain anything? Then the Buddha came to know that this particular monk could not gain anything through his meditation. Then what did the Buddha do? He gave, not the image, say lotus flower, to concentrate. Now he is very happy. He easily can concentrate. Formerly, he had difficulty of concentrating. The mind run here and there. Now mind is very clear, directly focusing towards this object without any difficulty. After that what happened? You forgot. So the color, the golden color, started to fade away, created by the Buddha. So when he was concentrating about the beauty of the golden color, when suddenly changed into dark color, then a realization appeared in his mind. So such a beautiful thing also can change like this. Now it is so ugly. Formerly it was very pretty, very beautiful. And this is the nature of things that which exist, including my body, my life. So when he was concentrating in that anicca, impermanency, then the petals of this lotus flower started dropping one after the other. All the petals are dropped. Now only this top is there. Then deep and deep he started to concentrate how existence changes, decay. So our body also like this. Through this concentration, he gained what he wanted. Because he was a goldsmith during his not only one previous birth, he had been dealing with gold many during his previous birth. That is what the Buddha is needed, because others or Arahantas or other disciples cannot understand this. The Buddha had 6 kinds of special characteristics, where any other religious teachers or Arahantas or nobody else in this world who had this 6 kind of characteristics. Shat asadharana jnana. This is one of them. To understand your background during your previous birth, what you have been doing, your character, your behavior, your understanding, your temperament. So by considering, understanding these things, then he preached, then appealed to this person's mind. So there are some others also who can understand little bit actually what you want to know or what you can understand when they look at your faces, your features. Some realizations appear in their mind that these people can understand this thing. If not, these people cannot understand this. Yes, that is the first question. Number 2. Anyway, I did not allow him to answer your questions, You post your question to these reverends, I mean, you must have your understanding and kindness towards everybody, every living being. Now that quality must be there. If that quality is not there, always you discriminate others. Very easy for you to get jealousy, anger, enmity and so many other problems. You can get rid of all these wicked thing, harmful thing if you cultivate your mind through this understanding. That is why we take this as very, very important virtue, the qualities, or the qualification for a person to be a religious man or a noble man. That is the meaning of this saying. It is called Nibbana, Parinibbana. You understand? Nibbana we can experience while holding these elements. That is Nibbana. Sankhara Parinibbana, Sankhata and Asankhata again. When these elements are no more, then we will be free from so many disturbances that we are experiencing now. Because of this element, we have to spend so much of our time, spend and worry and lot of disturbances because of this element. Physical and mental. When the mind is free from both, after that will become Parinibbana. Your words are wrong. You understand? If we say going to Nirvana, because there is nobody to go to Nirvana. You understand? If there is somebody to go somewhere, and that person or that thing never experience Nibbanic bliss. Because the thing that exists is what we call combinations of so many elements and factors and the disturbances, obstructions and so many other difficulties. That is not Nibbana. You understand? The trouble with us is this. We are bound to this world. We are bound to worldly life. Our attachment, our craving, our selfishness, our desire, these forces are very, very strong. We are not willing to release these things in spite of sufferings and worries and disturbances and difficulties. We are willing to hold this thing in spite of suffering. That is why people ask, if there is nobody to go to Nirvana, what is there? What is the big idea of going there? If there is somebody to go there, that somebody, that something also again experience impermanency, decay, death, disappear. Whether in heaven or Brahma world or any other part of the universe, subject to this universal nature of three characteristics. When we are free from these three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta, the day when we realized the nature of these three characteristics, why anicca, why changes take place, why we can't stop it, why we don't like it when changes take place, why we cannot tolerate when dukkha and sufferings and conflicts and disappointments and problems arise, why we cannot tolerate, why we complain, why we cry, why do we fight, why do we hate? And that is the problem. Anatta. We believe, because of our ignorance, that there is something, some sort of substance, entity, to remain in the end, to go to heaven, to go to Nirvana, to go to Brahma world, and that will remain forever without any changes. That is an illusion created by our craving. Because our craving needs something. So whether it is true or not, whether it is possible or not, we like it. Because our craving needs something. And that something which our craving needs again creates troubles and problems and worries and disturbances. To understand this will take long time, my dear friends. Akasattha janummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumuditva chirang rakkhantu loka sasanam ittavata cammehi sampatang punya sampatang sabbe deva namodantu sabba sampatti siddhya devo asatu kalena sassa sampatti hetu ca